I'm glad you've joined me today, and we're going to make print paste. Print paste is used to thicken fiber-reactive dyes. It can be used as a thickener for other kinds of surface design techniques too, but we're focused today specifically on how we're going to make the print paste, and then in the next video we'll add dye to it. Now, the thickener of choice is sodium alginate, and so I have sodium alginate here, and it's a plant derivative. It's actually from seaweed. And then I have urea, and urea is a humectant, and that means that the urea is capable of maintaining the moisture level in the fabric, which allows the dye a longer time to react. And the longer the dye can react, as long as the fabric is warm, the better chance there is that you'll get the best, brightest color possible. Now I'm going to work with a gallon of water, so I have a gallon here of hot water, and I have a blender. And it's fairly straightforward. There will be a recipe attached to the video, and you can get the exact proportions there, but if you don't want to make a whole gallon of print paste, you don't have to. You can make a quart, you can make a half gallon, it's up to you. It does keep in the refrigerator pretty much indefinitely, and so keeping it cool is an important aspect of just the best practice. Okay. Now, I can't mix the whole thing in the blender right now, so I'm going to make it in batches. And because I'm mixing it up and putting it all in one container at the end, it can actually be done in batches that don't have to be completely proportionately correct, because at the end it all mixes together. So the most efficient way to do it is to fill the blender about half full so it doesn't go everywhere when I start blending it. And then I'm going to need 2/3 of a cup of the urea. This is a 1/3 cup. So I'm going to add the urea in 2 batches. Now I want to put the hot water in the blender and turn the blender on before I put the urea in it, so that when I add the urea it will instantly dissolve. So it's a little bit noisy. I put the lid on. So that's how I can get it to dissolve. I'll do that one more time so that I have the full 2/3 amount that I need in the hot water in the print paste at the end. Now, as far as the sodium alginate is concerned, it's a sliding scale of how much sodium alginate you would use. It's going to take probably about 2/3 of a cup of sodium alginate to make this nice and thick, but if I wanted it to be thinner, like a slurry, I could use less. Frankly, I think it's easier to make it a particular consistency, which will be whatever you choose, and then you can always add more of the sodium alginate to it if you want it to be slightly thicker, and you can add more water to it if you want it to be thinner. In general, you want it to be able to hold a nice clean line, because that's the point of the print paste in the first place, is that it allows you to print the dye without having it bleed. Now, there is a print paste that you can buy commercially that's already pre-mixed, but I wouldn't recommend doing it that way. This is a more economical way to go, and it also allows you to adjust the thickness or the thinness. If you buy a package that's already got the urea and the sodium alginate in it, and you add water to it, then you can't adjust the amount of the sodium alginate and change the proportions. So this is why it's so useful to learn to do it yourself. I'm going to add 1/3 of a cup. Once again, I get the blender going, and then I add the sodium alginate. Now you'll notice I didn't add all of it, because if I put all of it in here right now, it could get so thick it would be hard to get it out of the blender. See, it takes a while for it to set up. So I'm going to pour this into my container, and then I'm going to do the whole thing all over again. And remember, I still need to add 1/3 of a cup of urea. In order to have the full amount that I need for the gallon that I'm making. So the trick to this is to mix it all up without letting it set up in the blender, which makes it hard to get it out of the blender because of how thick it'll get. And not to overdo it so that it doesn't splash everywhere. So now I've already got all the urea I need. I'm finished with the urea, but I am going to add a little more sodium alginate because I like to work with it pretty thick. Now, from a cleaning standpoint, it's going to be a lot easier to get this out of the blender if you pour some water in it and let it stand in the sink and then scrub it with a scrub brush. And I have this water left over, which isn't a problem at all. I can now add this water to what I've already created here. And then sometimes I put my hand directly in it. By the way, this is all non-toxic, so you're not hurting your skin. You don't really have to have gloves unless you've got some special manicure, which of course I don't. But now this will set up, and what I want to do before I walk away and give it the couple of hours that it needs in order to smooth out. It'll look like gelatin later. It'll be nice and smooth. It won't be like Jell-O, I'm not saying that. It'll be a very smooth slurry that'll be beautiful to add the dye to. So now I have a spatula, and I'm just going to stir it up so that the water that I added mixes into the print paste that was already mixed in the blender. And that's all there is to it. Put the lid on it and let it sit on the countertop here, as I said, for a couple of hours. A lot of the time the way I do it is I make it in the evening, and then by the time I get up the next morning when I'm going to have a full printing day in the studio, it's nice and smooth and ready to go. It's a beautiful consistency. So you can see how easy this is to do, and when I show you how to add the dye to it, you'll see the equation completed. And the only thing that I want to add to this is that if I was going to use all of this print paste in one print session, maybe over the course of a week, like I had a big project going, I could actually add the soda ash, which is the fixative that the dyes require in order to be permanent on the cloth. I could have added that soda ash into this print paste right now, and that would have sped up the whole process of adding the soda ash later when I add the dye. But I wouldn't put the soda ash in this container of print paste early if I wasn't planning to use it all up, because the soda ash shortens the lifespan of the print paste. So if I add the soda ash to the print paste, then it will gradually, it'll turn back into water, and it'll destroy the thickness that's so important to printing the dye. So don't add the soda ash unless you have a big job and you know you can use all the print paste, because you can always add the soda ash a little bit at a time as you work with the print paste and the dyes. Really simplifies the process. The blender is the key. You don't need a hand blender. You sure don't need a whisk unless you've got a need to work your upper body. This is the easiest, most direct route to really great, smooth print paste.